stick to just three prospecting techniques, because so many agents, especially, I mean, even for the first few years, I feel like they try and do everything. They try and do expired cold calls some days, and then they try and do door knocking once every 6 months, and then they do social media here and there. So if you're spreading yourself too thin, you're not going to get as many buyers or sellers. And one thing for buyers, I would say, especially with the new NAR settlement, I would honestly focus on listings.
Hey guys, welcome back to Realestatable, your go-to podcast for raw, real, and relevant information in the real estate world. Today, we're talking about the struggle bus that we are riding on and some of the changes that are happening within our industry.
Struggle bus. I think that's how a lot of us are defining just really the uncertainties that we're all facing. I feel like there's so many what ifs, TBDs, and I think that we want to make sure that we're coming across with as much value as we can and preparing for things that could be going in one direction or the other. But I also feel like right now it's like, okay, how do we not sit stagnant when there's so many things that are uncertain? And I really feel like today our conversation that we're going to be having is going to help myself. I really feel like it's going to help us all for sure. So
Yeah,
super excited.
we are interviewing Angela Leach, and she is going to talk to us about some scripts and some other ways that we can help our buyers and sellers overcome these challenges and changes within our market. So give it a listen. Hey guys, welcome back to Realestatable, your go-to podcast for raw, real, and relevant information in the real estate world. Today, we are interviewing Angela Leach, and she is going to talk to us about some scripting that you can use to help conversate with your clients and help them better understand a little bit more of the process. So excited for you to be here.
Yes,
We've been following you on social
Yes.
for quite some time.
Yes.
Thank
we were
you.
Just saying that.
I'm so glad to hear
Yes.
it.
Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, just like how you got into real estate, like leading up the roads leading up to where you are today?
Yeah, well, actually, I got into real estate about 6 years ago. And honestly, it was because I was doing massage therapy. So I owned a massage therapy business from like 22 to 24, I think. And then my dad, actually, they are big in investing. So my dad kept telling me, he's like, you need to learn about real estate. You need to get into real estate. And especially since we're from the Bay Area, I think he was kind of just looking out for me and like, that's a really good job here. So honestly, just because of him, I was like, all right, whatever, I'm going to look into it. And then I started, and right away, I mean, it was just perfect for me. I really love working with people, and I really love, I don't even know. I love the negotiation parts of it and the scripts of it, and just being able to um yeah, I don't know, just really help people find their home and then make the process really easy and enjoyable for them. I think that's the main thing, because it is kind of obviously a big process. So I like being able to do that.
Yeah, I could definitely see that come across in all of the social media that I've seen from you. I definitely see that pretty well entwined. You definitely are made for this for sure.
Woo,
For
thank you.
sure.
Thank you.
One of the things that I love about your social is your scripting. I feel like it's pretty creative, and it's not just like the standard, like it's more something that everybody can use, like more, it flows easier and sounds less scripty.
Oh,
So I
good.
wanted you to kind of talk about, well, one, how are you learning these scripts? Are you coming up with them on your own? Are you in like a coaching? Just tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so actually, about 2, 3 years ago, I joined a team out here in the Bay Area, and Danny Burgess, who I mention a lot on my channel as well, he was our team leader, and he's the one who taught me pretty much everything I know about scripts. So,
Okay.
and I'm so happy that you said that about making them a lot more kind of modern, because that's really what I've been trying to do. I do feel like when I was at Keller Williams, I would get all these script booklets, and they were just super long, huge paragraphs. And what Danny taught me that I'm trying to really convey through my Instagram is like, you can have short scripts that are going to make a huge difference, and they're so much easier to memorize and just slip into conversations. So I'm glad
I
glad
feel
that you guys
it,
saw
it
that.
looks more authentic too.
Mhm.
It sounds more authentic. It's more conversational, and I feel like it's relevant as well. So it's definitely something that stood out to us because we've talked several times. We're not super heavy scripting agents. In the way that we practice business, it is definitely not script based foundation. And so
Mhm.
I think that's why we're drawn to you, is just to kind of pour into us, pour into our listeners on how you're doing that, because the approach that you have to it is definitely one that I think could be relatable to a lot of people, a lot of agents around the country.
Yeah. I also, you brought up a good point, and now I'm like, what was I going to say on it? But I love your follow-up when you're talking about your open houses, because I think that you talk about following up before you even leave. Like you're doing the follow-up, and that's built into part of the time that you're telling the seller you're going to be there. So how long do you, I mean, I know it depends on like the traffic and how many people you get, but how much time are you allotting for an open house to do your follow-up?
Usually about like 15 to 20 minutes afterwards. Now that I've done it so many times, I can get it done pretty quickly. But again, I think what again Danny taught me is taking that video of yourself and just reintroducing yourself, saying, "Hey, I'm so glad that you came through the open house. If you loved this open house, I'd love to offer you that value," which I try and share a lot. So the value would be the disclosures, something like that. Or if they're not interested in that specific open house, more value would be, "Hey, we actually have a few other properties around the area that you might be interested in." So that is, I'm sorry, I feel like I kind of forgot the question now, but that's definitely it takes about 20 to 15 minutes, I would say, now to get those videos out.
Okay.
Too easy. No
Yeah.
excuses.
Not
And you
too
have
hard.
like a 9-point follow-up, right? Is it 9 or 7?
I believe it's 7.
One of those.
7, yeah. So
Okay,
it's like
so
7
a
days.
7. Oh, okay, 7 days. I wasn't sure on the actual process. So, day of open house, you're sending a personalized video saying, "Hey, thank you for stopping by. I'm Angela." And then the second touch is the value of the disclosures, right?
So the second touch would actually be, and I'll have to look at what I've posted on Instagram because I change them up, but it's usually I'll do like
Yeah.
the video. The next day I'll send a text of like, "Hey, if you're looking in this area, here are some of my favorite local eateries." Something that doesn't even have to do with real estate because they know you're a realtor. If you keep asking them for like, "Hey, are you ready? Hey, here's another thing like that you might be interested in," but maybe they're not. Send them stuff that they're actually going to be like, "Oh, cool. We're thinking of moving to this area. We'll definitely go check out this restaurant or something if they have kids, like this park that's
so
around
sweet.
there," something valuable like that. And then I'll shoot to email and then maybe a text message again of something else. I'm not going to try and touch them on the same thing, like call them every single day because I don't want them to get kind of irritated of me.
Yeah.
And how are you capturing their information while you are all are together? Are you expecting that they're filling it out? Are you just asking them from the information? I know there's different approaches to that, but how are you capturing that at the open house?
So I like to actually ask them. So I've learned all different ways, but I found the easiest way to actually capture that information is to let them go through the house, walk around. I don't have a sign up sheet right away. Some people do that way, but I don't know. I just feel like sometimes they scribble or don't give me the right information. So I wait for them to come back, and that's when I start to talk to them. I offer them the disclosures if they like it, or I offer them in person, like, "Hey, there are some other homes in the area." And I also really try and get to know them. So, first, I would say I try and create that relationship. And then once I feel like I've created a bit of a relationship, I'll then offer them the value. If they want the value, then I'll say, "Okay, great. And who is your realtor?" That's it. Like, if I ask them who's their realtor, if they have somebody, we've already created a relationship, they're going to let me know, "Oh, yeah, I'm working with Sarah, blah, blah, blah." And then I'll say, "Okay, perfect. So I'm going to just send this to her then." Because if they already have somebody that they're working with, I'm not going to try and poach them away. So I'll say, "Great, if you have her card or her information, please send it over." And then I'll send her the disclosure so she could send it to you. But this way, I'm not straight just asking like, "Hey, are you working with somebody?" And we don't have that relationship yet, because that's when people are going to just randomly say yes, or they're going to be less likely to give you their info. So that's how I do it. And then I just put it down in my phone.
Yeah, that I honestly, I feel like over the years of different ways to approach it as well. We've tried like, enter to win, make sure you give us your contact information. But I also feel like that follow up when you are actually trying to work on relationship building for the chance that that you have them face to face, it definitely has a better success rate. Maybe not 100% of people are giving you information, but those that are more likely to be able to turn business, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I agree on that.
Yeah.
So I know you said you're meeting with your company today to talk about NAR, but I wanted to talk because the industry is changing regardless of the lawsuit or not. And I think that buyers are going to be looking for someone who is professional, someone who knows their stuff, and is more than just someone who's opening the door. And I think, buyers are going to be interviewing agents. And so what are some like scripts or some things that you're going to implement in your business regarding kind of like that realm of like working with buyers that potentially might be having to pay you soon,
Mhm.
um, and just kind of showing your value there?
Yeah. Well, I think one big thing that a lot of buyers agents are going to need to start doing is really get their buyer presentation down. And they're also going to need to update their buyer packet and just really treat that like a listing appointment now. Because you're going to have to
Yeah.
show them and walk them through, hey, this is why I get paid. This is what's included in my service fee, so that they're going to then understand what they're paying for. And for the scripts, we're actually working on, sorry, I keep shaking this. For the scripts, we're actually working on, the team that I'm with right now. Every week, Monday through Wednesday, we're working on scripts for this NAR settlement, because obviously it's so new and I really need to
Yeah.
Yeah.
get these down in my head too. But I do have some on my phone that I could share with you. Um, and so it really is just going to be practicing that buyer consultation as you would your listing consultations, because you don't want to go in and start practicing on those buyers. You want to have everything down
Yeah.
and make sure that your presentation is beautiful and that you're very clearly able to explain to them what's going to be happening down the line if the seller doesn't decide to still pay the buyer's agent.
Yeah.
I agree. We were actually just talking to this with our team, like, okay, getting ahead of the curve of that. And really it's not like it's a drastic change of what we're doing. I just
Yeah.
think that we have to be so much more in the know and so much more well versed and practice ahead of time, because I think that now the consumer is asking those questions that might have been assumed or might been addressed differently. And so I think that having different angles that we're able to be very well prepared, the professional set up for success, et cetera. So excited to hear some of the scripts and things that you guys have already started to work on, if you don't mind sharing.
Yeah, let me pull them up because I don't want to like butcher them, but I'm
Okay.
trying to remember.
Yeah.
So I remember one of them in the beginning is pretty much telling your buyer during the consultation as well, um, are you up to date on the NAR settlement? Going forward, all buyers will need to sign an exclusive agreement with an agent in order to even see a home or submit an offer. So being sure that they actually know, like, don't try and sneak obviously anything by them, and then just wait for them to figure it out. Because I do feel like some newer, I don't want, like, I don't know, just some agents might just see like, oh, maybe we won't have to deal with this and we'll just start looking at houses. But you really want to just give them the information up front and let them know what's going on. And let me look for some scripts that I really like in here.
Well, I also think while you're doing that too, I think
Mhm.
that like just assuming that people are not in the know when
Mhm.
so much of the social media realm that, just by nature, pretty much every consumer is going to be either tied into social media or the news, right? Like
Yeah.
either they're in a generation that they're still watching the news or they're a generation that they're with social media. I feel like you're probably at 100% rate moving into this new change, for us as professionals, that I think that there's probably going to be so few consumers that don't know.
Yeah.
So I like the approach of just being like, hey, just so you know, like this is
Mhm.
how we're handling it. And
Yeah.
if there is an off chance that they live under a rock and they really don't know, you're
Yeah.
able to then just be like, okay, well, and I feel like a lot of agents are like, well, nothing's changed. It's the way that I've been doing it. It's like, yeah, but you always can be perfecting the way that you're
Mhm.
presenting, and you always
Mhm.
can be moving with the times. And you just bringing that up too, to say right off the bat, like, NAR and what's, what you've heard, or just like knocking it out of the park immediately with them
Mhm.
versus assuming, is definitely going to set you apart. Because I think a lot of agents are going to just under the rug because they're not feeling comfortable and confident
Mhm.
with that conversation. So
Yeah.
definitely feel, even just following Angela, I'm sure there'll be more that you're putting out to be able to help people get comfortable with that,
Yeah.
the whole concept of everything, for
Oh,
sure.
Yeah,
definitely.
and I
Yeah.
think even just talking about the lawsuit kind of shows that you know what's going on in your industry,
Hmm.
because if you are able to articulate what actually is happening or happened, that's going to provide value right there.
Yeah, no, I agree. I
Yeah.
agree.
So,
Anything else to add on that you think that would be valuable? Any other?
well, yeah, for what you guys were just talking about, I think that it is going to be very important to one, bring that up front, because that is going to be kind of an elephant in the room. And I think if you bring that up before a buyer brings that up, that just, yeah,
Hmm.
shows your professionalism and
Yeah.
just that you're in control of the situation and that you're not nervous about it.
Yeah.
So
Well, and
Um,
I was just with a client this weekend, and I thought, because I'm so like conscious of like, okay, when am I going to have to talk about this? Like, what,
mhm.
you know, what is right to say now when there's so many moving pieces still?
Yeah.
And so what was funny was I was like, okay, I'm just going to react as the questions or the balls get rolling, whatever. And I totally misinterpreted a question that he had for me, thinking it had to do with the settlement or the changes. And I was like, I should have just led with like, okay, so you know the changes. So that way we knew that was the subject we were talking about, not
Hmm.
Tiffany's translation
Oh yeah.
of not at all. I was like, this is not going well. I'm like, thankfully I'm learning and figuring this out now before it's like, okay, now you're going to get penalized if you don't do this, or now you
Yeah.
know, there's big repercussions. So
Mhm.
yeah, I think that that is a really great tip to just be like, okay, get it out. Let's air it out.
Hmm.
Yeah. Well, and I always love answering clients' questions before they ask them.
Yes.
They're
Yeah,
like,
Yeah.
"Oh, I
that's
was going
huge.
to ask you that." And I'm always like, "I
Hmm.
know you
That's
were."
my job. Yeah.
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 Always
That's
one step
perfect.
ahead. Two steps ahead. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay,
Exactly.
what's another script we can use?
Okay, so I wanted to go over because we were discussing some objections we're likely going to have with the
Yeah.
NAR settlement moving forward. So if someone is to say like, "Hey, I don't want to be locked into a contract. What's the point of signing if we can just cancel?" So one script that we kind of came up with is, "Hey, this agreement formalizes our relationship so that I can so that I can get started working for you." The cool thing is that it can be canceled at any time, although nobody has canceled an agreement with me before. So obviously, letting them know like, "Hey, nobody's done it before, but there is always that option for you." This agreement outlines my fiduciary responsibilities to you and is a symbol of our commitment to work together, similar to giving your spouse a wedding ring. I wish I could maybe I could write all these down for you guys and share it so you could share it with your
Yeah.
Yeah.
people. That would be really helpful, I think, because I don't think anyone's going to remember probably word for word what I'm saying.
Yeah, and most people are probably driving listening too.
Well, and
That's
our show
true.
notes too for the podcast will always have that. But I think
Mhm.
that too, like as you start to kind of work through that, I think that will be helpful to have
Hmm.
it kind of perfected and outlined. Because I just feel like the biggest thing is that we're just having the conversation right now with how are we shifting our businesses, right? Like
Hmm.
I'm sure Angela today versus Angela 4 months from now is going to be like, okay, that didn't work. Wait, you know, Joe across the office had a better idea. Wait, I listened to this podcast. I went to this convention. Like I did these things, and it's
Hmm.
like there's going to be things that kind of perfect that. And then I also think that like just almost if you think about day one in the business and where you are now, just for every one of us, it's like
Hmm.
this is going to evolve. And if we know anything about our industry and really us as professionals, changes or not, settlements or not, any of these things, like you have to continuously be better based off of those clients that you're serving
Mhm.
always. So it's like I don't know. I feel like that has been super obvious now that it's like it's not because it's always been that way, which is
Hmm.
kind of my book of business, and how an old dog teaching an old dog new tricks has been more difficult versus, you know, keeping up with everything. So
Yeah. And
Yeah, I think Oh, go ahead.
oh, that's so I was just gonna say, to your point too, I just feel like we're gonna see so much creativity now with this
Mhm.
new settlement because nobody's had to really do this. Like some people, yes, they've been doing their
mhm.
buyer consultation and they're like killing it and they know already how to do it. But I think people are gonna get creative and yeah, we will be able to take other people's ideas and start implementing it. So it's kind of yeah, anything can happen. People will get creative.
And you never know too what they're actually going to like this is just all proposals. This is
Yeah.
all like lots of TBD. And you like it's like we can move in a direction, but it's like what are they actually going to regulate? What are they actually going to require?
Mhm.
Mhm.
Just making sure that you're strategizing, but really just perfecting the way that you're doing it already. I don't know for you, are buyers representations required, common practice, etc. Where you are at? Is that something you're doing already or no?
No, no,
Not
not in the
really?
Bay Area. A lot of the times
Yeah.
you would be told just like if you get a Zillow call, anything, just go out and show them the house. I actually am really more excited about this because I think as a woman, one,
Yeah.
I never did that. I kept getting told if you get a Zillow call, just go show them a house. And to me, I was thinking, well,
Yeah.
I don't want to go show a stranger a vacant house by
Yeah.
myself. So
Yeah.
for me, I wouldn't do that. So I think this is going to give us more of an opportunity as well to vet our buyers and to qualify them first before we go out and
Mhm.
spend so much time showing them homes and then possibly having them just go sign an agreement with a listing agent or something. So I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
this will be great for us.
See, and we're in a market where that is more common practice. And so it's like minimal shift, but I think it's different conversation.
Mm.
And the timing of that for us is like, oh, this is first interaction. Like, is that really going to come out where it's like first interaction or prior to any interaction? And how do you get someone comfortable? And are you comfortable with this person? Like, are we signing up for crazy or are they signing up for crazy? Like how do we know? But it's interesting to see because it is not buyer's representation. One of our agents is actually dual licensed in another state. And she's like, no. And even if you did have a buyer's representation, like no one goes by those. So you could, you could be working with someone else's signed. I'm like, this is just a rodeo.
Yeah, that's crazy.
It's crazy. But it's interesting to see because not every person is like going to be like, well, that's no problem. I just need to perfect my representation agreements. Some people are like, representation agreements? What?
Yeah.
What is this? So yeah.
Well, I also think too, when like for years and years, the seller, commission's always been negotiable. There's my disclaimer. But seller has paid commissions for forever. So I feel like buyers aren't interviewing agents like they're going to be now, because I know like when I take my kids to the store and they're like, Mom, will you buy me this toy? And I'm like, no, you can use your own money. Well, then they don't want it anymore because they know like, oh man, this costs money. This is my money. And I know like I'm more reluctant to make a big purchase when I'm like, ooh, let me weigh the options first. Let me see if there's a better product. What are the reviews? And so I think that like just perfecting your package of your buyer consult, getting your Google reviews, knowing your scripts, all of that's going to be so important when you're working with buyers now. Agents are no longer going to be like part-time opening doors. It's going to be the full-time people who have all of that together.
That was such a good analogy.
That was, yeah. That was really good.
Yeah. Did she just come out of your pocket with that?
Yeah.
Okay. There you go. No, it's so true. Perfect. Oh my gosh, my kids are the same. Yeah. So true. So true.
Oh man.
Okay. So any other scripts we can take from you?
I did. Yes. So there is one about commissions, because of course we're probably going to get somebody saying, let me find it. Like, do you lower your buyer's commissions? Or, so here's one. Can you lower your commissions at all? If you're a buyer's agent, you just let them know, no, this fee actually covers all of the services we just talked about. So again, making that very clear on what your services are. And most of the work happens after we get into contract. I don't get paid if you don't get the home. So that's a huge thing, I think, right there, letting them know like, hey, obviously these are what my services are. I just showed you. And then also most of the work is going to happen after we get into contract. So you really are going to want me obviously there helping you out through that. But in the end, I don't get paid if you don't get into that house. So even if we get into contract and then I guess the buyer's contract, it depends on who you are as the buyer's agent. But here we're pretty much saying like, hey, if you don't get this house, so say we don't get an offer accepted, that's a little bit easier way to say it. But if you don't get an offer accepted and then you choose to not buy a house right now, I don't get paid. And so, you're going to only pay me once you are happily in the next house that you want to be in.
Yeah, that makes sense. So many different angles for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I like that you kind of outline that, like, you're going to get all of these services once we go under contract, once you find the one, once our offer gets accepted, because you're right. A lot of the work for buyers is, it's doing the showings and all of that, but it's writing all the offers, because we know in many markets, you probably won't get the first house you offer on.
Yeah.
And then outlining what you're doing while you're under contract.
Yeah.
I think that's really smart.
For sure.
We are going to wrap up this episode with some prospecting tips and scripts that we can use to get more buyers.
Love it.
What do you got for us?
So I would say to any agent, especially if they're a newer agent, because I think a lot of more veteran agents kind of know this, the main thing I would say is stick to just 3 prospecting techniques, because so many agents, especially, I mean, even for the first few years, I feel like they try and do everything. They try and do expired cold calls some days, and then they try and do door knocking once every 6 months, and then they do social media here and there. So if you're spreading yourself too thin, you're not going to get as many buyers or sellers. And one thing for buyers, I would say, especially with the new NAR settlement, I would honestly focus on listings. So if you get a certain amount of listings that you want to hit a year, say that's 10, the buyers are going to come with it. But if you start just focusing on finding listings, that's just going to make your life easier, your career easier, and then you will still find those buyers.
Yeah, just by attraction of those. Yep, I
Mm-hmm.
agree.
I
Yeah.
like how you said pick 3 things, and I'm like more of a data person. So to me, that's speaking my language of like, yeah, you don't want to cold call one day and then you're switching to door knocking and then you're switching to like Facebook ads and et cetera, because you're not going to know what's working.
Yeah.
Like you
Yeah.
need to pick the 3 things, do it for like 30, 60, 90 days, figure out which of the 3 are working, or if they're all working, stick with it, but then switch your strategy, because if you do it one time, it's not going to work. In my
Exactly.
opinion. Yeah, you
Yeah.
got to test it out.
Yeah. And especially
Do you have
things
scripts that you're using?
for,
Sorry.
no,
Do
no,
you have
no.
scripts that you're using for no?
For which type of prospecting?
I don't know.
Well, why don't you talk about listings, since you said
Yeah.
like we should be moving in the direction of generating listings.
Mm-hmm.
What are some of the top, say, 3 things that you're doing to prospect for listings?
So my top prospecting techniques are right now sphere of influence, which I think should be everybody's if they kind of grew up in the area that they're in. So sphere of
Mm-hmm.
influence, and then mailers and social media right now this year. Those are my 3 that I'm doing. So the top 3 scripts I would say for that are, let me think. So what I've been using mostly for my sphere of influence, um, is pretty much just offering them my, let's see, I'm trying to think for them. Usually it's weird because I've been with my sphere of influence for so long. Instead of just asking them like, hey, would you like a market analysis on your house? It's more just consistently keeping up with them, because then they're going to let you know, hey, my mom needs to list her house, or my brother needs to list or something. So it's consistently monthly checking in with them, and just keeping that relationship obviously with them. As for mailers, that's easier to get listings because these are homeowners that are seeing your face monthly. So for that, I'm also
Mm-hmm.
not directly every time asking them, hey, do you want a CMA for your house? It's just, again, offering them some homes in the neighborhood that, hey, this home listed at this and sold for this. And then also local events too, so that even if they're not interested in selling their house, they're still going to be interested in the flyer or the mailer that I'm dropping off, because it has local stuff that's going on too. And then they're just going to keep seeing my name. So that is one tip that I would give with mailers, is mailers needs to be very, very consistent. You can't do it once and then 6
Yeah.
months later try it again, because they're not going to remember your face, and likely they're not going to be looking to sell at that exact moment. And then for,
How many neighborhoods are you doing for that? Like, how many mailers would you say you're sending a month, and what are you using to send them out?
so I just moved actually to Folsom in November, and we've been getting everything set up. So I'm looking for the right farm out here right now, but usually back home in Concord or in the Bay Area in Castro Valley, I would do, because it was just myself and I was hand dropping them off, about 500 if I could a month. And so honestly, if you could do
Mm-hmm.
more than that, that is huge. But I have a 2-year-old as well, so I was just doing 500. But I would go and just physically hand drop them off on the porch, so that people had to pick them up and see them. Yeah.
Gotcha. What were you using were you like sticking it kind of under a doormat, or like how did you hang it on the door,
No,
or?
those are very cute though. I like the little door hangers, but since I was doing it so often, I
Yeah.
kind of would just print them out and leave them right on their doormat or something. Or if they had a little
Okay.
table outside, I'd leave it on the table, just somewhere where they had to see it and pick it up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I like the approach. I always it's always interesting to hear in like the time it takes to do those kind of things, or the resources that you're using. So that's a really good approach to that as well. And I love the idea of, it's not about the sale, but the value that you could be adding, like
Mm-hmm.
the local activities and things like that. And that was done monthly when you were consistently doing that to the 500. It was monthly that you were doing that.
Yeah, and I've said in my social media before, I had a son 2 years ago, and so things
Mm-hmm.
kind of drastically changed after that. And so
Yep.
the monthly was a little bit harder to do. And so before that, before I had my son, it was monthly to make it very clean, and people would obviously remember my name. But
Yeah.
yeah, after I had my son, there was pretty much a whole year that I actually ended up having to kind of take off, which was okay because I did my sales right before I took that time off. But
Yeah.
yeah, now that I'm up here in Folsom, I'm super excited to start doing that monthly again.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And what was the third thing? You said there was 3 things that you were doing between that. What was the third thing?
Yes. So social media, and I just started on that pretty much this last year, and it has been a game changer. Like I feel like you see so many people saying, "Oh, I have sellers sliding into my DM and buyers sliding into my DM." And so I started changing my Instagram because I've been obviously trying to help agents more than anybody. But I've been doing a couple videos here and there now, offering value to sellers and buyers and offering them answers to questions that they actually have. So, how do I get my home sold in the fastest amount of time? How do I get more money? Um, for how do I get higher offers and better offers on my house? Stuff like that. And then I have them, I just pretty much have a stand store and I have a little email and phone number that they can reach out and put their information in there if they want to start chatting with me. And all I do is offer them, hey, let's
Mm.
get chatting through a text just so I can learn a little bit more about what you're needing, what you're wanting. And so that's how I have been finding a lot of leads come in for sellers and buyers, actually. And then the other thing that I really do with social media, which is the last thing I'll say with social media, is I will go through my stories and find all of my sphere of influence. So it kind of rounds back to that and people I went to high school with and everything. And I will just send them value. So I just sent a bunch of people that I went to high school with this little thing I created on Canva saying, I think it was something about like learning how to get like home wealth pretty much while in your 30s. And so I'm trying to target very specifically who I want to work with, which is like millennials that I grew up with maybe, because I would enjoy working with them and trying to teach them, hey, this is how you're going to gain that wealth, the residential wealth. If you want to chat a little bit more about it, then just DM me this word and we could start chatting. So that's how I pull them out.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
My one question I had about your the CMAs that you're doing you said you're doing those monthly, right?
No, I was doing the mailers monthly.
Mailers monthly, but how often are you doing the CMAs
So up
with your
here,
SOI?
so I'm not doing now that I actually, since I moved from Folsom, I've had a few sellers back home. So honestly, for them, I've been referring them out to. I have a few agents handpicked out there that I used to work with a lot. So for them, I've been actually referring it out. So I know I feel maybe if we have this call in another couple months up here, I'll be able to tell you a little bit more. But a lot of what I've been doing the last year with, again, my son, and I was just going through some other personal issues. I've been referring a lot of things out.
But you're only right now doing CMAs if someone raises their hand to say, hey, what's the value of my home?
Yeah.
That's kind of
okay.
You're sending them out that way.
Okay.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure if you were using like a system or something. So
usually I'll just sorry.
Oh no, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say usually I'll just go to the MLS and then walk them kind of through it. And, print them out that way.
Okay. Yeah. I know I had a lender for a while where I was on like a monthly drip and it was sending me the value of my house. So I didn't know if you were using something like that to just generate monthly for your people.
I was doing that for a while. I think it was HomeBot or something.
HomeBot, yeah.
I think that's what it was called. And yeah, I was doing that for a little bit and it did work pretty well. I mean, the sellers, the people that I had you sold to in the past, they enjoyed seeing what the home value was. And so that was good. I might get back onto that now that I'm out here.
Yeah. All right. Well, we are so appreciative that you came on for an interview. Where can people find you, like on social or email, website, to get connected with you and see kind of what you have to offer for scripts and all the things?
Yeah, so I'm pretty much mostly right now just on my Instagram. Hopefully down the line, I'll be able to do what you guys are doing and stay up with the Instagram and YouTube and everything. You guys are doing amazing. So right now it's just Instagram and I believe it's Angela.Leach.realty. I believe that's what it is. So yes, if they want to chat, definitely feel free to reach out there. I'd love to share what I have with them. And if they have questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Well, we would highly encourage all of you guys to follow Angela. I feel like there's just like little bits and snippets that you have, and even go back historically. I feel like there's so many things that have influence and really, really easy applicable tips that you're like, I should try that. And I can totally implement that today. Like it's a lot of what we are trying to encourage listeners to do throughout their business. So I'm super excited to continue to learn with you as everything is kind of changing and progressing. We so appreciate your time today as well. And we look forward to the future for sure.
Well, thanks so much for having me on. It was so much fun, and I'm glad it wasn't as scary as I thought it might be. So
Yeah.
I enjoyed it.
First time podcaster here.
First time podcaster. No, you did awesome. Awesome.
Yeah.
We appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you guys.
All right, guys, that was an awesome interview with Angela. I feel like anytime I'm on her social media, I'm constantly just having all the takeaways. So if you don't follow her, you definitely should, because she shares so many scripts and so many different tactics that you can use for your business that anyone can do that aren't like scary or overwhelming or super time consuming.
Yeah, and I really like her approach to kind of how she's going to start shifting her conversations with buyers. I think just in general, there's a lot of unknowns right now in our industry and a lot of different angles and ways that it can go. But the stuff that she talked about today, I feel like that's totally applicable for conversations we should be having with clients right now in everyday transactions that are happening, regardless of what lies ahead. I think worrying about the unknown is something that the society just wants us to do. The media wants us to do that. And I think that we can make those changes now to be better agents, regardless of what lies ahead of us. So I was really excited about some of the things that she really went and outlined for us today, for sure.
Yeah, I loved her scripts. And then I love that she talked about doing the 3 different things you're doing for prospecting, because I feel like prospecting for many agents is either non-existent or it's like what's coming to me. But really focusing in on 3 prospecting methods and doing those 3 things, seeing if it works and continuing or changing.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, guys, if you found this episode helpful, make sure you share it with a friend, give us a 5-star review, and you can find us everywhere on social at Realestatable.